The soft glow of the hotel lamp cast long shadows across room 412 as Dwight Reynolds checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. His wedding band caught the light as he adjusted his tie one last time. The text message that had just arrived made his heart race. Someone was coming to meet him. Someone his wife knew nothing about. Someone who had responded to his ad. What drives a successful person to seek connection in the shadows of anonymity? How far would you go to protect the secrets that live behind the carefully constructed facade of your life? Dwight Reynolds was many things to many people. To his colleagues at Harrington and Walsh, one of Baltimore's most prestigious law firms, he was brilliant and meticulous. To his wife, he was devoted and dependable. But beneath the polished exterior of this 30-year-old attorney lay desires and impulses that would ultimately lead him to that hotel room on a cold February night. What Dwight couldn't know as he waited was that the person he was expecting to meet had very different intentions than what had been discussed in their messages. The encounter that was meant to satisfy his hidden desires would instead become the final chapter of his life. This isn't just a story about a crime. It's about the spaces between who we appear to be and who we really are. It's about the dangers that can find us when we step outside the boundaries of our public lives. What would you risk to fulfill desires you've kept hidden from everyone who knows you? How well do we really know the people we share our lives with? The story of Dwight Reynolds forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, desire, and deception. It reveals how quickly control can slip away when secrets collide with desperation. Before we continue with this story, take a moment to subscribe to Guilty Whispers and join our community of truth seekers. Ring the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. If you're already part of the family, welcome once again. Feel free to leave a comment and let us know if you've been enjoying our stories. We have a lot to uncover in tonight's video, so stay tuned. Dwight Reynolds grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Philadelphia, the son of a high school teacher and a postal worker. From an early age, he showed remarkable focus and determination. His mother often recalled how, at just 7 years old, Dwight announced he would become a lawyer after watching a courtroom drama on television. Unlike most childhood dreams, this one never wavered. By the time he graduated from Howard University School of Law, Dwight had already mapped out his future. His professors described him as methodical and exceptionally detail-oriented. These qualities served him well when he joined Harrington and Walsh, a prestigious law firm in Baltimore specializing in corporate litigation. Within 4 years, he was on the fast track to partnership. It was during his second year at the firm that Dwight met Elena Thompson at a charity fundraiser. Elena, a pediatric nurse with an easy laugh and warm presence, seemed to balance Dwight's more reserved nature perfectly. Their courtship was traditional: dinner dates, weekend trips to the Chesapeake, and eventually, a proposal at Baltimore's Inner Harbor on a crisp autumn evening. He was so nervous, Elena would later tell friends. He had the whole thing planned down to the minute. That was Dwight, everything had to be perfect. They married in a small ceremony at Riverside Baptist Church, with just family and close friends in attendance. The couple bought a brownstone in Federal Hill, a trendy Baltimore neighborhood with tree-lined streets and artisanal coffee shops. From the outside, their life together seemed idyllic. Dwight's colleagues at Harrington and Walsh saw him as the model young attorney. James Harrington, the firm's founding partner, once remarked, "Reynolds has the kind of mind that can spot a contractual loophole from a mile away. He's meticulous, thorough, and clients trust him implicitly." His office was immaculate, files arranged by color and date, desk clear of clutter, family photos perfectly aligned on the credenza behind his chair. One of those photos showed Dwight and Elena on their honeymoon in Barbados, both smiling broadly on a catamaran. Another captured them at his parents' 40th anniversary celebration. The images projected exactly what Dwight wanted the world to see: a successful young professional with a loving marriage and bright future. But there were aspects of Dwight that remained hidden, even from those closest to him. Growing up, he had learned to compartmentalize his feelings, to present only what was expected. His father, a strict disciplinarian, had little patience for emotional displays. "Reynolds men handle their business," was his frequent refrain. Dwight internalized this message, becoming adept at maintaining a composed exterior regardless of his inner turmoil. This ability to separate his public and private selves would eventually extend beyond mere emotional regulation. By his third year of marriage, Dwight had created digital spaces where he could explore desires he never acknowledged in his daily life. It began innocuously enough, anonymous forums where he could discuss fantasies without judgment. But over time, these online explorations grew bolder. The first dating profile appeared 18 months before his death. Under the username LegalEagle79, Dwight began messaging strangers, careful to avoid sharing identifying details. These interactions remained largely virtual until a business trip to Chicago provided an opportunity for his first in-person encounter. The experience was both exhilarating and terrifying for him, a taste of freedom that would ultimately lead to increasingly risky behavior. Elena first noticed changes in her husband after they returned from their 5th anniversary trip to Puerto Rico. He seemed distant, she later told investigators. "I thought maybe it was work stress at first." The firm had just taken on a major class action suit, and Dwight was putting in 70-hour weeks. But there were other signs that something had shifted. He began taking his phone with him even for short trips to the bathroom. His laptop was suddenly password protected. Late-night work sessions became more frequent. When Elena gently questioned these changes, Dwight had ready explanations. Client confidentiality required increased security measures. The new case demanded extra hours. His distraction was just temporary exhaustion. Elena, trusting and supportive by nature, accepted these explanations, though a growing unease lingered. What Elena couldn't see was that Dwight had begun living a carefully orchestrated double life. By day, he was the consummate professional, arguing motions in court, drafting briefs, mentoring junior associates. By night, he increasingly retreated into a world of anonymous connections. The dating apps on his phone were hidden in a secure folder. His alternate email account, used exclusively for these interactions, was accessed through a private browser that left no history. Marcus Jeffries, a fellow attorney at Harrington and Walsh and perhaps Dwight's closest friend at the firm, later recalled subtle changes. "Looking back, there were signs something was off. He started declining our usual Thursday happy hours. He'd get these texts that made him step away from conversations. But Dwight was always private, you know. It wasn't my place to pry." 6 months before his death, Dwight's online activities escalated. The dating apps weren't providing the anonymity or excitement he craved. He began posting personal ads on Craigslist under various pseudonyms. The ads were carefully worded to attract specific types of encounters while revealing nothing about his identity. He used prepaid phones for these communications, leaving no connection to his real life. It was during this period that Dwight created his final online persona, control-seeking. The name reflected both his desire to dictate the terms of his encounters and the irony of his increasingly out-of-control behavior. Under this alias, he posted the ad that would ultimately connect him with Tiana Jackson. Meanwhile, in southeast Baltimore, Tiana Jackson was facing her own struggles. At 21, she had already weathered more hardship than most people face in a lifetime. Raised by her grandmother after her mother's incarceration for drug possession, Tiana had shown early academic promise. Her elementary school teachers noted her quick mind and natural leadership abilities. But as financial pressures mounted and her neighborhood deteriorated, Tiana's opportunities narrowed. By her senior year of high school, Tiana had taken on 2 part-time jobs to help support her grandmother, whose health was failing. College scholarships were available but insufficient to cover all expenses while allowing her to continue contributing at home. After graduation, she enrolled in community college but dropped out after 1 semester when her grandmother's medical bills became overwhelming. Tiana moved between various service jobs: cashier at a convenience store, housekeeper at a budget motel, server at a diner. None provided the stability or income she needed. Her apartment in Bel Air Edison, a neighborhood struggling with rising crime rates, consumed nearly 70% of her monthly earnings. The financial pressure was relentless. It was during this period that Tiana reconnected with Kendra Morris, a childhood friend who had recently returned to Baltimore after a brief stint in Atlanta. Kendra, streetwise and charismatic, suggested various opportunities to make quick money. At first, Tiana resisted, clinging to the values her grandmother had instilled. But as eviction notices appeared and bill collectors called, her resolve weakened. "Everyone's got a breaking point," Kendra would later tell police. Tiana just hit hers. Neither Dwight Reynolds nor Tiana Jackson could have imagined how their vastly different lives would intersect on that February night at the Westbrook Hotel. Two people from separate worlds, each making choices that would lead them inexorably toward a violent collision. By January, Dwight's double life had become increasingly difficult to maintain. The careful compartmentalization that had once seemed so manageable was beginning to fracture. Elena had found a receipt for the Westbrook in his suit pocket, a room he'd booked 3 weeks earlier. When questioned, he claimed it was for a client meeting that ran late during a snowstorm. The explanation was plausible enough, but Elena's expression revealed lingering doubt. "Is everything okay with us?" she asked that night as they prepared for bed. The question hung in the air between them. "Of course," Dwight replied, not meeting her eyes. "Why wouldn't it be?" Elena hesitated. "You just seem somewhere else lately. Even when you're home, you're not really here." Dwight crossed the room and took her hands in his. It was a calculated gesture, one he'd perfected in courtrooms to convey sincerity. "It's just this Harrington case. Once it's over, things will get back to normal. I promise." The lie came easily, wrapped in just enough truth to be convincing. The Harrington case was indeed demanding, but it wasn't what kept Dwight distracted and distant. What Elena couldn't see was how her husband's online activities had evolved from occasional diversions to consuming preoccupations. Under his control-seeking persona, Dwight had become bolder in his Craigslist postings. His ads now specified exactly what he wanted. Discreet encounters with no strings attached, always on his terms, always with the promise of financial compensation for time spent. He was careful never to explicitly offer payment for sexual services. His legal training made him acutely aware of such distinctions, but the implication was clear. These encounters followed a pattern. Dwight would book a hotel room, usually at the Westbrook, where the staff had come to recognize him as a regular business guest. He would arrive early, inspect the room meticulously, and wait. The meetings were brief, transactional. Afterward, he would return home to Elena, carrying his secrets like stones in his pockets. Across town, Tiana Jackson's financial situation had reached a breaking point. Her grandmother's medication costs had increased again, and the heating bill for their apartment was 2 months overdue. The manager at the diner where she worked had cut her hours, claiming business was slow. In reality, she suspected he was punishing her for rejecting his advances. "I don't know what I'm going to do," Tiana confessed to Kendra one evening as they sat in Kendra's cramped apartment. "They're threatening to shut off the heat next week." Kendra scrolled through her phone, only half listening. Then she stopped, her expression changing. "Check this out," she said, passing the phone to Tiana. On the screen was a Craigslist ad. "Professional man seeks discreet company. Generous compensation for the right person. Must be willing to follow specific instructions. Privacy and discretion essential." "So?" Tiana asked, handing the phone back. "So, these guys are loaded," Kendra explained. "They pay good money just for company. And sometimes they bring cash, jewelry, nice watches." Tiana shook her head. "I'm not doing that." "I'm not saying you should sleep with anybody," Kendra clarified, her voice taking on an edge of excitement. "I'm saying we could set something up. You meet him, get him comfortable, I come in, we take whatever he's got and bounce." These guys never report it, they can't. Their wives would find out. The idea hung between them, dangerous and tempting. Tiana thought about the disconnection notice, her grandmother's pills, the endless cycle of barely making ends meet. I don't know, she said finally. Just think about it, Kendra urged. That's all I'm saying. For the next week, Tiana did think about it. She applied for 2 more jobs and was told they'd keep her application on file. She called the utility company to beg for an extension and was denied. She pawned her mother's necklace, the only thing of value she owned, for less than half what it was worth. When Kendra called again, Tiana was sitting in her cold apartment, wrapped in blankets, calculating how many days she could stretch her remaining food. I found the perfect mark, Kendra said without preamble. This guy calls himself control-seeking. Posts all the time. Always uses the same hotel. And get this. He's some kind of lawyer or something. Definitely has money. Tiana closed her eyes. How would it even work? Simple. You respond to his ad. Set up a meeting. I'll be nearby. You text me when you're in the room. I come up, we take his wallet, phone, whatever, and we're gone. These guys don't fight back, they have too much to lose. The plan seemed both frighteningly simple and impossibly risky. But desperation has a way of making the unthinkable seem reasonable. What if he recognizes me later? Tiana asked. Wear a hat, glasses. He's expecting a woman anyway, we'll make you look like a dude. Trust me, these guys don't pay attention to faces. 3 days later, Tiana sent her first message to Control Seeking. The response came within hours, detailed, specific, businesslike. The writer suggested meeting at the Westbrook the following Tuesday. Room 412. 9 o'clock. He would pay $300 for 2 hours of company. As the day approached, Tiana's anxiety mounted. She borrowed clothes from Kendra's brother, baggy jeans, a hoodie, a baseball cap. Kendra helped her bind her chest with an elastic bandage and showed her how to walk with a masculine gait. Remember, Kendra instructed as they rehearsed in her apartment, get him comfortable. Tell him you need to use the bathroom, then text me. I'll knock like I'm room service or something. What if he doesn't let you in? Tiana asked. He will, Kendra assured her. These guys are all the same. They think they're in control, but they're not. On the night of February 9th, Dwight told Elena he had a late meeting with a client. It was a familiar excuse by now, one she no longer questioned aloud. He kissed her cheek and promised to be home before midnight. At the Westbrook, Dwight went through his usual routine. He checked in using his corporate card, rode the elevator to the 4th floor, and inspected room 412. He placed $300 in cash on the desk, not too visible, but not hidden either. Then he waited. Across the city, Tiana and Kendra finalized their plan. Kendra gave Tiana a small knife. Just in case, she said. You probably won't need it, but better safe than sorry. Tiana stared at the knife. I thought you said these guys don't fight back. They don't, Kendra assured her. But you never know. Just keep it in your pocket. As Tiana left Kendra's apartment, dressed in her disguise, she felt a sense of unreality. Was she really going to do this? The weight of the knife in her pocket seemed to answer for her. At 8:55 p.m., security cameras at the Westbrook captured a figure in a baseball cap and hoodie entering the lobby. The person kept their head down, avoiding the cameras. At 9:02 p.m., that same figure knocked on the door of room 412. Dwight opened the door, his expression changing slightly as he took in the person before him. Not quite what he expected, but close enough. He stepped aside to let his visitor enter. What happened in the next 20 minutes would change both their lives forever. Have you ever wondered what you might be capable of in a moment of panic? What split-second decisions you might make when a situation spirals beyond your control. Leave your thoughts in the comments below about how far you would go to protect yourself or your secrets. The door to room 412 closed with a soft click. Dwight Reynolds stood with his back to it, studying the person who had just entered. Something felt off. The figure before him was shorter than expected, the movement slightly hesitant. But Dwight had come too far to turn back now. "You're right on time," he said, his voice taking on the confident tone he used in business negotiations. "I appreciate punctuality." Tiana nodded, keeping her face partially obscured by the brim of her baseball cap. She had rehearsed this moment with Kendra dozens of times, but the reality was far more intimidating. The man before her was tall, well-dressed, clearly accustomed to being in charge. His wedding ring caught the light as he gestured toward the room's sitting area. "Would you like something to drink?" Dwight asked, moving toward the minibar. "They have pretty much everything here." "Water's fine," Tiana replied, deliberately lowering her voice. She needed to buy time, to get a sense of the room's layout, to find the right moment to text Kendra. Dwight poured 2 glasses of water from a bottle on the desk. As he handed one to Tiana, their fingers brushed briefly. He noticed her hand trembling slightly. "Nervous?" he asked, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Don't be. I'm very straightforward about what I want." He gestured to the envelope on the desk. "Your compensation is there. Feel free to count it." Tiana glanced at the envelope but made no move to take it. Instead, she scanned the room, noting the location of the bathroom, the closeness of the door, the king-sized bed that dominated the space. Her heart hammered in her chest. "Mind if I use the bathroom first?" she asked, already moving in that direction. "Go ahead," Dwight replied, loosening his tie. "Take your time." In the bathroom, Tiana locked the door and leaned against it, breathing heavily. She pulled out her phone and texted Kendra, "Room 412. Come now." Then she stared at her reflection in the mirror. The person looking back was unrecognizable, a stranger in borrowed clothes with fear in her eyes. She touched the knife in her pocket, reassuring herself of its presence. When Tiana emerged from the bathroom, Dwight had removed his suit jacket and was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone. He looked up and patted the space beside him. "Come sit," he said. It wasn't a request. Tiana hesitated, then moved toward him. Where was Kendra? She should have been here by now. The plan was falling apart. "You know," Dwight said, studying her more carefully now, "you're not exactly what I was expecting." Tiana felt a surge of panic. "What do you mean?" "Just that your messages gave a different impression." He reached for her cap. "Let me see you properly." Instinctively, Tiana stepped back. "Don't." Something changed in Dwight's expression, confusion giving way to suspicion. "What's going on here?" "Nothing," Tiana said quickly. I like to keep things anonymous." Dwight stood up, his height suddenly intimidating. "Who are you really?" The moment stretched between them, taut with tension. Then a knock at the door shattered it. "Room service," called Kendra's voice. Relief flooded through Tiana. The plan was back on track. But Dwight frowned, moving toward the door. "I didn't order anything," he said, more to himself than to Tiana. He peered through the peephole, then turned back, his expression hardening. "Did you set this up?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Tiana said, but her voice betrayed her. Dwight moved with unexpected speed, grabbing her arm. "Who are you? What is this?" The knock came again, more insistent. "Room service." "Your champagne, sir." "There's been a mistake," Dwight called through the door. "I didn't order champagne." He turned back to Tiana, his grip tightening. "I think you should leave. Now." Panic surged through Tiana. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Dwight was between her and the door. Kendra was outside. The money was still on the desk. Everything was falling apart. "Let go of me," she said, trying to pull away. "Not until you tell me what's going on," Dwight insisted, his lawyer's instinct for detecting deception now fully engaged. "This is some kind of setup, isn't it?" The knocking stopped. Kendra had given up or was finding another way in. Either way, Tiana was on her own. "I said let go." She twisted violently, breaking his grip. Dwight reached for her again, his face flushed with anger. "You're not leaving until..." Tiana didn't think. Her hand went to her pocket, fingers closing around the knife. In one fluid motion, she pulled it out and thrust it forward. The blade caught Dwight in the abdomen. His eyes widened in shock more than pain. He looked down at the growing red stain on his white shirt, then back at Tiana. "What have you done?" he whispered. Tiana stared in horror at what had just happened. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't supposed to happen. But as Dwight lunged for her, his face contorted with rage and pain, instinct took over again. The knife rose and fell, rose and fell. Later, Tiana wouldn't be able to recall exactly how many times she stabbed him. The medical examiner would count 7 wounds, 3 to the chest, 2 to the abdomen, 1 to the neck and 1 defensive wound on his hand. But in that moment, it was just a blur of motion and terror. Dwight stumbled backward, collapsing against the wall. He tried to speak, but only a gurgling sound emerged. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across the hotel carpet in a dark stain. Tiana stood frozen, the knife still clutched in her hand. The room was silent except for Dwight's labored breathing, which grew fainter with each passing second. Then it stopped altogether. Reality crashed back in waves. Tiana looked down at her blood-covered hands, at the knife, at the man slumped against the wall. She had killed someone. The thought was too enormous to process. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Tiana?" Kendra's voice was barely audible. "What's happening?" "Let me in." Moving mechanically, Tiana went to the door and opened it. Kendra slipped inside, then stopped short at the scene before her. "Jesus Christ," she breathed. "What did you do?" "He grabbed me," Tiana said, her voice distant and hollow. "He wouldn't let go." Kendra assessed the situation with frightening speed. "We need to get out of here. Now." She grabbed the envelope from the desk, then looked around the room. "Take his phone, his wallet. Anything valuable." "I killed him," Tiana said, the reality of it finally sinking in. "And we'll both go to prison if we don't move," Kendra snapped. "Now help me." The next few minutes passed in a blur. They wiped down surfaces, collected Dwight's belongings, and prepared to leave. Before they left, Kendra turned to Tiana. "Listen to me. This never happened. We were never here. Understand?" Tiana nodded numbly, still staring at Dwight's body. At 9:37 p.m., security cameras captured 2 figures leaving the Westbrook Hotel. They moved quickly, heads down, faces hidden. Behind them, in room 412, Dwight Reynolds lay dead, his secrets dying with him. The morning after the fatal encounter in room 412, a housekeeper discovered Dwight Reynolds' body. Her scream echoed down the hallway of the Westbrook, alerting other staff who immediately called 911. Within minutes, the elegant hotel lobby transformed into a hub of police activity as Baltimore Police Department detectives arrived on the scene. The victim had multiple stab wounds, Detective Lisa Morales would later testify. The room showed signs of a struggle, but interestingly, not a robbery gone wrong. The victim's expensive watch remained on his wrist, though his wallet and phone were missing. From the beginning, this case presented unusual elements. Dwight Reynolds, respected attorney, devoted husband, rising star at Harrington and Walsh, had no obvious enemies. Yet someone had killed him with such ferocity that responding officers described the scene as one of the most violent they had encountered. The first challenge for investigators was identifying why Reynolds was at the hotel. His firm confirmed he had no client meeting scheduled that evening. Hotel records showed he had been a regular guest, booking room 412 specifically on multiple occasions over the previous 6 months. When detectives notified Elena Reynolds of her husband's death, her grief was compounded by confusion. "He told me he was meeting a client," she said through tears. "Why would he be at a hotel? It doesn't make sense." The investigation took a significant turn when detectives examined Dwight's credit card statements. They revealed a pattern of hotel bookings, regular cash withdrawals, prepaid phone purchases. Together, these painted a picture of a man living a carefully compartmentalized life. "We see this sometimes," explained Detective Morales to her partner as they reviewed the evidence. "Successful people with everything to lose creating separate spaces for behaviors they can't integrate into their public lives." The breakthrough came 3 days after the murder when tech specialists recovered deleted data from Dwight's work computer. Hidden behind layers of password protection was evidence of his Craigslist activities, dozens of ads posted under the name Control Seeking, along with responses from potential meetups. The most recent exchange led investigators directly to the burner phone number used by Tiana Jackson. Digital footprint analysis placed that phone near the Westbrook Hotel at the time of the murder, and hotel security footage, though grainy, showed 2 figures matching Tiana and Kendra's descriptions entering and later leaving the building. What followed was a methodical pursuit of justice that revealed how 2 lives from vastly different Baltimore neighborhoods had collided with fatal consequences. Detectives located Tiana Jackson through her employment records at the diner. When they arrived at her apartment, they found her caring for her grandmother, seemingly having returned to her normal routine despite the violent encounter days earlier. "She didn't run," noted Detective Trey Jameson. "That's unusual in cases like this. Most perpetrators flee, at least temporarily." During initial questioning, Tiana maintained she had never met Dwight Reynolds. But her story unraveled when detectives revealed they had recovered text messages between her burner phone and Dwight's Control Seeking account. They also found blood matching Dwight's type on the sleeve of a hoodie hidden in her closet. Facing mounting evidence, Tiana broke down. "I didn't mean to kill him," she sobbed during her formal interview. She wiped tears with her sleeve. "It was supposed to be a simple robbery. But he grabbed me, wouldn't let go. I got scared." Kendra Morris was arrested the following day at her apartment. Unlike Tiana, she showed little remorse, insisting she had remained in the hallway and had no knowledge of the stabbing until Tiana opened the door. "I never touched the guy," she told detectives. "This was Tiana's doing, not mine." As the case moved toward trial, Baltimore's social divisions came into sharp focus. Dwight's colleagues at Harrington and Walsh established a memorial fund in his name, with James Harrington delivering a moving eulogy that celebrated Dwight's legal brilliance and community service. The firm's website featured a black ribbon beside his profile photo, linking to a page that detailed his accomplishments without any mention of the circumstances surrounding his death. In Federal Hill, Elena Reynolds faced not only grief but the disorienting revelation of her husband's secret life. Friends reported she had withdrawn from social circles, unable to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the one who had died in that hotel room. "She's struggling with questions that have no answers," explained her sister during a brief statement to the press. "Please respect her privacy during this impossible time." Across town in Bel Air Edison, Tiana's grandmother fought a different battle. With Tiana in custody awaiting trial, the elderly woman faced eviction and mounting medical bills. A local community organization stepped in to provide temporary assistance, but her situation highlighted the desperation that had driven her granddaughter to that fatal encounter. The case against Tiana and Kendra moved swiftly through Baltimore's overtaxed legal system. The prosecution charged Tiana with second-degree murder, arguing that while the killing wasn't premeditated, it occurred during the commission of another crime. Kendra faced charges of conspiracy and accessory to murder. Tiana's public defender built a defense around fear and self-defense, portraying Dwight as an aggressive man who had cornered a frightened young woman. The prosecution countered with evidence of the planned robbery, arguing that Tiana had created the dangerous situation that led to violence. Throughout the 6-month pre-trial period, the media coverage reflected Baltimore's divided nature. Some outlets portrayed Dwight as a victim of urban crime, a successful professional whose life was cut short by senseless violence. Others examined the economic disparities that created the conditions for the tragedy, questioning a system where someone like Tiana could see robbery as her only option while Dwight could afford regular hotel rooms for secret encounters. During the trial, evidence emerged that changed public perception of the case. Security footage from the Westbrook showed Dwight had been a regular guest for over a year, always requesting the same room, always meeting different people there. Hotel staff testified he had been polite but forgettable, exactly what someone leading a double life would want to be. The jury deliberated for 3 days before reaching their verdict. Tiana was found guilty of manslaughter rather than murder, with the jury accepting that she had acted out of fear rather than malice. Kendra was convicted of conspiracy and received a shorter sentence. At Tiana's sentencing hearing, she addressed the court with quiet dignity. "I take responsibility for my actions," she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "I never wanted anyone to die. I was desperate and made terrible choices. Not a day goes by that I don't wish I could undo what happened." The judge sentenced Tiana to 8 years in state prison, noting both the seriousness of taking a life and the circumstances that led to that moment. "This case represents a tragedy born from the collision of desperation and deception," he observed. "There are no winners here, only painful lessons about the consequences of the paths we choose." The case of Dwight Reynolds forces us to confront uncomfortable realities about the lives we build and the secrets we keep. 2 people from vastly different worlds, each making a series of choices that seemed reasonable in isolation but ultimately led to tragedy. Their paths should never have crossed, yet in their intersection, we find profound truths about human nature and the society we've created. What happened in room 412 of the Westbrook Hotel was not simply about one man's hidden desires or one woman's desperate gamble. It was about the masks we wear, the compartments we create, and the illusions we maintain, sometimes even with those closest to us. Elena Reynolds has since moved away from Baltimore, seeking a fresh start in another city where strangers don't recognize her name from news headlines. Friends say she's slowly rebuilding her life while still grappling with the question that haunts her: how well can we truly know another person, even someone we love? James Harrington transformed the memorial fund established in Dwight's name into a legal aid program for low-income residents of Baltimore, focusing particularly on neighborhoods like Bel Air Edison where Tiana grew up. "If there's any meaning to be found in this tragedy," he stated at the program's launch, "perhaps it's that we need to bridge the divides in our city before more lives are lost." In the Maryland Correctional Institution for Women, Tiana Jackson earned her GED within her first year of incarceration. She now participates in a prison outreach program, speaking to young women about the consequences of desperate choices. Her grandmother, supported by the community organization that stepped in after Tiana's arrest, still visits monthly, bringing home-cooked meals and unwavering love. Kendra Morris, serving a shorter sentence, has maintained that she was merely a bystander to tragedy. Fellow inmates report she shows little reflection about her role in the events that unfolded that February night. The Westbrook Hotel has since renovated its 4th floor, renumbering rooms to eliminate the now infamous 412. But staff say some guests still ask about the lawyer murder, a morbid fascination that management tries to discourage. Baltimore itself seems to have absorbed this tragedy into its complicated history, another story of lives intersecting in ways both unpredictable and inevitable. The city continues its struggle with economic inequality, with neighborhoods like Federal Hill and Bel Air Edison existing in parallel universes despite their physical proximity. Perhaps what makes Dwight Reynolds' story so compelling is how ordinary it began. A boy who decided to become a lawyer while watching television. A young man who married his college sweetheart. A professional respected by colleagues and clients alike. There was nothing in his background that suggested he would one day bleed out on the carpet of a hotel room, killed by a stranger who knew nothing about him except what could be taken. And Tiana, a bright student who once dreamed of college, reduced by circumstance to making unthinkable choices. The knife she carried was meant to provide security, not to take a life. Yet in a moment of fear and confusion, everything changed. Their story serves as a mirror, reflecting aspects of ourselves and our society that we often choose not to see: the fragility of our carefully constructed identities, the desperation born of inequality, the consequences of deception, and the thin line between the lives we show the world and the ones we keep hidden. What would have happened if Dwight had sought connection openly rather than in secret hotel rooms? What if Tiana had found legitimate opportunities that matched her natural intelligence and determination? What if our society didn't create such vast gulfs between neighborhoods like Federal Hill and Bel-Air Edison? These questions have no easy answers, but they demand our consideration nonetheless. Because understanding the forces that brought Dwight and Tiana to room 412 might help us prevent similar tragedies in the future. The true crime genre often focuses on the sensational aspects of human behavior, the violence, the deception, the moment when ordinary life transforms into extraordinary headlines. But the deeper value lies in what these stories reveal about ourselves and the world we've created. They invite us to look beyond the crime scene tape and ask difficult questions about justice, responsibility, and redemption. In memory of Dwight Reynolds and all those affected by the events of February 9th, we offer this story not as mere entertainment but as an opportunity for reflection. A life was cut short. Other lives were forever altered. And perhaps in understanding how and why, we can move toward a world where such tragedies become less common. The truth behind closed doors can only come to light when we have the courage to share it. If this story moved you, help others discover it by sharing this video. And don't forget to subscribe to Guilty Whispers. Together, we can ensure that stories like Dwight's are never forgotten and that justice finds its voice. None of us knows what secrets might lie behind the polished facades of those we encounter daily. None of us can predict how our choices, even those that seem small and private, might eventually intersect with the lives of others. But we all share responsibility for creating a society where people don't feel forced to live in shadows, whether those shadows conceal forbidden desires or desperate actions born of economic hardship. In the end, the story of Room 412 is not just about what happened between two strangers on a cold February night. It's about all of us, the worlds we build, and the truths we choose to face or ignore. The most frightening aspect may be how easily any of us could find ourselves making choices that seem reasonable in the moment but lead us down paths from which there is no return.